On behalf of the captain and the crew, we'd like to welcome you aboard Flight 079, now departing to the world of pets in the cabin. Cabin crew, arm doors, and cross-check.
Thank you for listening to us today. If this is the first time listening to this podcast, welcome aboard. If you're a returning listener, we're glad you're back. Seat 1A provides tips and tricks from more than 5 million miles worth of flying to help you take off from the crowd.
In today's experience recorded on the 6th of April, 2024, we're going to take a deeper look into animals coming inside both the airport and the cabin.
And we'll also have some discussions about some recent trips as well.
Cats and
It's
dogs
been a
flying
while.
in the air when pigs fly.
Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
Happy 2024. Glad to be back on track here with Seat 1A for everybody, all of our listeners here. So, we've talked about pets a lot towards the end of last year, and we decided, yes, let's start discussing pets and crazy things and stuff that happens. And there were some wild stories last year, and I'm sure there'll be some crazy stories that happen with pets in the year upcoming.
Absolutely. Yeah, this has been ongoing for a while. Historically, I think animals, generally, animals didn't fly. Let's start with that.
Yeah.
But in one of our previous experiences, we did talk about, animals as cargo, horses and all this kind of stuff. And we can kind of recap, what it's like for, anyway, you generally think domestic animals, cats and dogs going into a plane. But then, I don't know, in the last decade or 15 years, suddenly came this new phenomenon of emotional support animal.
Yes.
All things in inclusion, these animals must fly with their owners to do what they do. And that's a weird world. So, yeah, it's a bit of a strange place to kind of figure out, because there's not really, it's a lot of gray area, I think, on this one. It's not necessarily clearly defined ways of doing things. But if you look at any airline manual or rule book, there is quite a lot of words defining what should happen.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, if you're going to travel with your dog or cat, and you're going to, I don't know, whether they're moving or they're going on vacation with you, option one is put them in a kennel and put them into the hold. So, and I think you've seen quite a few of that.
Oh gosh, yeah. When I worked underneath, it was you'd see kennels of various sizes, and people worrying about what's going to happen to my dear Fido or Rex. It's like, don't worry, the at least one of the holds is heated or at least ambient, so your animal is not going to turn into a popsicle in the air and unfortunate end when it lands. And then, unfortunately, I mean, some animals, they fly better than others. There's the one that I remember that we opened the hold, and did it ever stink because some poor dog, it was probably their first time ever flying, or they weren't sedated, and they had made an absolute mess of their kennel. So we told the new guy to go up and jump into the hold and go get the kennel.
Yes, of course you did. Fantastic. You
But
nailed
I mean,
the
I've
word
also
there.
had, the kennel in the my infamous years ago, the kennel flying from Newark to Munich, and it was the dog whining every single moment, just about as I'm falling asleep. The dog just starts to whine.
Of course, yappy dog, right?
Well, it wasn't yappy. It was just like, "Woo, woo, woo, woo." It's like,
Oh, just not
okay,
happy. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
And it's like, yeah, since that point, it was always earplugs in flights because it was incredibly annoying. It kept me awake.
yeah. You nailed the word there, ambient. I mean, some people think, in the hold of the plane is as cold as the minus 65 and higher, and lower, sorry, that's outside. It's not. You're right. It's not necessarily heated. There's not like hot air blowing on your suitcases, because that'd be a waste. But there's ambient heat just from the pressurized cabin and throughout. And yes, they are supposed to heat a certain hold, whether it be a bulk hold or another section of the belly of the plane. But I do remember this one flight going in, I don't know, I guess it was just mid flight. And somehow animals came in. As a crew, depending on the airline, you'll know if there's pets being checked in. At least the airline that I work for, you would get a slip, which you would then, sorry, at the boarding gate, once the ramp had loaded it on, and then you deliver that slip to the passenger. So the passenger has physical confirmation the animal has been loaded into the aircraft and
So
put
it's
everyone's
essentially
mind
like
at
a
ease.
pet manifest.
Yeah, yeah, in that sense. That also means that the flight deck should know. I remember going in, or maybe it was one of my colleagues had gone in, talking about pets, saying, "Oh, hope the dogs are okay underneath." And the captain was like, "We have dogs on board."
Oh no.
Yes. And he just quietly, without any words, puts his hand up and flicks the on switch for the heat or something. Or had no idea, or
And
missed
my
it or
memory of
something.
like flying narrow bodies was like we did 737s and 320s. The 737 heated hold was at the front and the A320 was at the back. So you wanted to make sure
Hmm.
you got the hold correct if you were working on different metal.
Yes, exactly. Especially when you're turning them fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned 737. Edmonton, and you said when you, as a rampy, you open the hold and you're not exactly sure what's going to meet you. I mean, you hope that it's just nothing.
Hmm.
It's just a bunch of bags stacked, and that's what you do. This was, I think it was First Air. So First Air is an airline that operates in the Canada's north, servicing the northern communities and the Northwest Territories and Nunavut. And for, I don't know if they have retired them all, but for a good long time, they ran the 737-200 classics.
And was that
And
the one with the gravel kit?
yeah, it would have a gravel
Yeah.
kit on it. And what's interesting about this plane is it sits fairly low to the ground because it had this sort of like this long cylinder-like engines. So your ground clearance is quite low. So if you were to stand next to it, you almost would not need a belt loader in essence because it was just you could drop the bags out. It was only like I don't know 4 feet,
Yeah.
maybe five, whatever it is. I just remember this one crew, they opened the hole. I guess said dog had broken out of its kennel
Oh no.
in flight. And as soon as they opened that cargo bay door, dog was out and on the ramp. And that's a serious thing for an airport, for an airfield, because it's running around on an active ramp. There's, you know, engines, there's trucks, there's
Vehicles.
everything. Yeah, there's chaos. And I guess the dog took off into sort of the grassland area surrounding the tarmac. Airport authority environmental body comes out trying to find this thing. They couldn't find this dog for weeks.
Oh no.
And we're talking Edmonton, so the airfield is sort of off a prairie field, I guess you could say, with some forest, some shrubs, some bush, a little bit of everything all around. And I think everyone just kind of assumed, well, dog's gone. It's ran away. It's gone. Or maybe it got eaten by a coyote. Who knows? End of discussion. Owner's upset. Who knows whatever went on the admin side. I guess at some point, weeks later, a ramp crew was doing their job, looks over, and boop, here's this dog's head. Just pops out of the grass, tail wagging, all happy. Like, that's the dog. And somehow they managed to capture the thing and lure it back. But I guess it was just out there just doing its thing. You know,
Wanted a
like,
wanted a
wanted to
vacation.
run free. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So
Wow,
good
you
on
imagine
that
being the
dog.
owner, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, that dog you thought we lost?
Yeah. That would be quite traumatic, I think. But yeah, but now going back into the cabin, yeah, people have taken it a little bit to the extreme in some cases. And on a normal day, you'll have a dog or a cat, and the general rule is it needs to fit under the seat in front of you. So we're not talking large animals. We'll get into service animals in a second. So medium and smaller, fits in a soft crate. And then the other rule is it cannot leave said kennel. It's got to stay in there the entire flight, which has got its own mixed bag of reviews. I mean, if you're talking an hour flight, it's one thing, but I don't know, like on a 4 hour plus flight, you got to wonder, like, how does this work with, you know, biological needs? What's
Exactly.
going to happen?
Food and
Is the
water
owner,
and out the other end.
yeah, like, is the owner done due diligence, maybe gone to the vet to kind of help sedate the animal a little bit, or potentially,
Hmm.
potentially not? Or do they chuck them in the kennel and off we go? And a number of flights where I've had to like come down on the passengers, they've had the animal out and they're playing with it or it's on the seat. If they pull open the bag just to give the poor thing a bit of room to stretch and maybe give it a treat, that's fine. It's still confined within. But one thing people don't realize is the reason these rules are in place as well is should the aircraft go into an emergency situation, landing or heaven forbid a crash, you want this animal, in somewhere somewhat safe. And then also the oxygen mask issue comes into play. Yeah, it's not going to fit properly, but you can kind of try to give this animal some sort of oxygen with a human-sized mask. So it gets a little bit of a, like I said, it's a lot of gray area. But service animals, in our world today, service animal is with their human.
Hmm.
So you have to make accommodations for it. I myself have never checked in a service animal at the counter, but I have received them on board when I was crew. And I mean, these are the most trained animals you'll ever find. So they just go in and they sit on the floor and they're happy. And they're usually larger animals like a Labrador Retriever or that breed of dog. So it's never an issue. And owners that have service animals usually are also as trained as the animal itself. So those are the easy ones. But occasionally you get people that are just, I don't know what they're thinking. There was this one, it was St. John's, Newfoundland. It was some early, 6:30 a.m. departure, Old Gross 100. It's dark out. Everyone's half awake. And here comes this female, probably, I don't know, 20 something, with this massive white, I don't know, husky, shepherdy, big dog. And we're
Wow.
thinking, okay. And she's, I don't know, operating normally. I don't know if that's a politically correct term. Or she did not have any visible signs of requiring any assistance from a large dog.
Okay.
So as a crew, we're like, what's going on here? So she throws out the doctor's note at us. And it basically says that she is required to have this dog with her for emotional support. We're like, uh-huh, okay. And what you can't really challenge anything at this point because the check-in staff is supposed to have verified everything, and so is the gate. So you take it upon them. But even if you wanted to, even if you wanted to push back, what are you going to ask them to do? Can you please call this doctor's office now at 6 a.m. and verify that this is correct? Like
No.
that's not going to happen. Yeah. So she had to get on, and she was assigned a bulkhead, but the entire row was gone because this dog was so big. And she sat there in the window seat and basically just fell asleep and let the dog sit there. Fine. I thought I want to get to the bottom of this. So started chatting with her all friendly. Oh, where are you going? What are you doing? Turns out she was moving across the country. So what I found is that she had two other dogs checked into the hold and probably like who knows how many suitcases. And you have to pay, you know, to check in a
Hmm.
dog into the hold. Like it's not like it's free. So we figured out that she was basically needed to fly this third dog and didn't want to pay. So she got it declared as emotional support and brought the thing on board. So it was, yeah. We were going to Toronto and I think she was connecting on to Calgary or something. We did make a point to advise the Toronto ground staff, please just verify what's going on with this passenger, with this dog, because something just didn't seem right. It was a major inconvenience on board. We had to move passengers. There was no room for this thing. It was so big.
Yeah.
Um, you know, if you're gonna take it on the next flight, then you have to like make sure everyone's in the know.
And she had checked, or she had had the Chihuahua as underneath the airplane, right?
Probably because the kennel will fit on the cart on the other side,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, you scour the internet and you see all these bizarre instances, generally in the United States, of
Yeah.
people that have brought
So
the most ridiculous things on board.
Yeah, so prior to COVID, I mean, there was a lot of examples of emotional support animals of all sorts. And based on an article I'm reading here from National Use and Travel, they set a new rule that effective January 11th. Sorry, this was Alaska, but they made a new rule at the end of 2020 to allowed airlines to ban emotional support animals, that meaning that they're no longer required to board horses, pigs, peacocks, and turkeys for psychological reasons. So it made a difference between trained support animals and emotional support animals, with the owners were then expected to check the latter into the cargo hold and pay any relevant airline fees. So some of the they give the six craziest examples here, or memorable examples. So there was Dexter, the emotional support peacock,
Oh, I can't even
and that
imagine
was
infamy.
turned away from a United Airlines flight from Newark in 2018. And we explained this to the customer on three separate occasions before they arrived at the airport. And then the person was all over Instagram saying that they spent 6 hours trying to get on their flight and with the bird. And then in October 2016, there was Daniel, the emotional support duck. And
Emotional support duck.
exactly. Then there was Fred, the miniature service horse.
So just pause on that. I've seen this horse thing going on in airports, and granted, a miniature horse can be the size of like a Great Dane or something,
Exactly. Yeah.
but it's a bloody horse.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like,
Good grief. I
uh,
mean, it was February 2020, where this person had flown from Grand Rapids, Michigan to Ontario, California, and connecting in Dallas. I'm just like, my gosh. I mean, that's a long flight for a horse here. Then there was an emotional support pig in January 2018. Then we have Gizmo, the emotional support marmoset,
marmoset. Oy, oy, oy.
in
Okay.
August 2016, flying with Frontier from from Ohio to Las Vegas. And this is the funny part here. When the miniature primate peeked out of his owner's shirt, the owner didn't have appropriate paperwork to hand in. And then when they tried to take the return leg of the journey, they found that they had been placed on Frontier's no-fly list, denying them entry to the plane.
That's really funny that it's Frontier, because what does Frontier have as livery on all its
It has
vertical
all those animals
stubs?
on the tails.
That's right. Very nice looking at airports, but that's
Yeah.
funny. Yeah.
And then this was one. Apparently, somebody was taking a picture. There was well, they say that this gets rolled out every Thanksgiving in the US, but there was a turkey in airport security. So not flying Turkish Airlines, but a turkey itself. So
Goodness, it's just too much, too much. I mean, yeah. What's the
yeah,
phrase? Give an inch, take a mile.
yeah, pretty
Give
much.
an
Yeah,
arm,
and that
take a
was
leg.
pretty much
Yeah.
why the Department of Transport, particular, well, in the U.S., had to say like enough is enough. Like you said, if you've got a, a an animal that's a trained animal, then yes, that's fine because that
Hmm.
animal knows how to behave and the owner knows how to behave with their animal. But all of these other animals,
I kind
goodness
of
knows. Can you
Peacocks
imagine
have a
like
bad side to them. Peacocks can get really angry.
pissy? Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you imagine like if, all of a sudden it's like an emergency, situation on the plane and this marmoset jumps out of the guy's shirt and starts running.
Be amazing. Amazing. Actually, funny you mentioned that the thing about the shirt. My late father, used to always tell this story about, I guess it would have been in the 70s, being on a flight and maybe it was seatmate or some across the aisle, whatever, another passenger, this man, and he noticed the man like always slipping food into his sort of um, interior pocket area.
Yeah.
He was very
Like wearing a
curious.
suit
Yeah,
or
yeah,
a suit
suit
jacket or
jacket.
something, right? Yeah.
Yeah, something like that, exactly. Or maybe it was like a trench coat or something. And he figured out that this man had like one of the, these tiny monkeys in the pocket and he was like slipping food. And he was just bewildered by this. Now, how the thing got through security, but again, we're talking like 70s, so
Yeah.
things are a bit different. Smoking on board, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, then the guy was there, flying with his monkey and all was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's quite funny.
I was gonna say that guy with a marmoset, pokes its head out and he gives it a drink or something.
Yeah, 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 knock it out for the next few hours. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, aircraft interiors are not the place for animals necessarily. And animals can have accidents on board, that's for sure. And you mentioned,
Hmm.
the dog that shat in its kennel, and our family, we've supported rescue dog efforts over time, and we've worked with an organization that brings rescue dogs over from Taiwan. So, being the advocate I was, I'm like, oh, I'd like to volunteer with the airport operations side, of course.
Well, that's a
Um,
long flight for
it is,
a
yeah,
dog. Wow.
yeah, like a 12, 13 kind of thing. So we would be there at airport, and the way it works is a passenger would have 5 or 6 kennels attached to their profile, and then when they land at, obviously here in Canada, the passenger then has to go through customs. They don't have to speak to anything of the animals. That's what the organization is doing on the ground side. The passengers are kind of just the token to get it on the plane.
Yeah, to
Eventually, it
attach
gets clean.
a thing to a
Like a
manifest, right?
manifest. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Eventually, the passenger comes out, and then there'd be a porter with this cart of crates. This is very exciting. It's very nice. All these dogs having a new home. However, these dogs have not eaten, and they put it water bottles, and sometimes they drink. And we know this, and we're there to take them out, clean them up, and clean the kennels too.
Hmm.
And inevitably, yes, there'd be kennels or they'd be peed in, shat in, and but the poor animals had to endure that journey. So it was fun. You're gloved up and you got all your wipes and your sprays, and you're going in purpose built. So we'd go further down to the quieter side of the curb, and there we'd be, a couple of us opening the kennels, some taking the dogs out for the first time. These animals are skittish, so you really have to pay attention to them. And new families are coming to pick them up, and meantime we're in the back cleaning, rinsing, washing,
Yeah.
and then eventually stack them up and they go into a vehicle. So yeah, it was fun. It was very rewarding. So in that sense, you know, poor things having a shot was a good thing.
And I think like the animals on planes, it's more noticeable over the last 10, 15 years, as say like the pet relief areas are in so many airports now.
Good point. Yes, I have noticed that actually, because generally they'd be always like outside in some end of a curb somewhere where no one ever knows or it's impossible to get to. But now you're right. In terminal, there are areas
Yeah, it used to
that
be beside where you'd like catch the bus to go to the rental car lot or something, right?
literally, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, that's exactly it. Or like it'd be on the arrivals level. But well, I suppose you arrive and then you want to get the animal right out. Whereas if you're departing, it's less of a
Yeah.
thing. Where it also gets tricky is when you go into IROPS and delays.
Hmm.
You know, I can't imagine. You're connecting somewhere, your pet is in the hold, it's being transferred, and you go into a cancel or an overnight situation. Like what happens then? Do they reunite you? Do you then take it and bring it back? It
I
starts to
mean,
get
it was
really
years ago,
tricky.
and I have no idea how the process is now, and like with like scanning tags and everything, right? But I'm sure they must something happens where like a living thing gets out so they can be like fed and watered and
Yeah, yeah,
relieved.
there
Yeah.
has to be that. And also, I mean, the customs side of things, they have a whole animal quarantine
Hmm.
procedure. Most countries have a way to process it where they actually have
Yeah.
kennel and vet and all this kind of stuff. So it's not like it's the end of the world, but well, depending where you're flying, you never know what's going to happen, I
Hmm.
suppose. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there is one other type of pet that's generally in cabins. Those are mice and rats, unfortunately, and they do get into aircraft and they are on board. Even like the small, I remember being, oh, I don't know how old was I, 10 years old, and we took a trip, family trip to Portugal. And I remember we loaded in Lisbon. It was a CP Air DC-10
Oh,
classic.
wow.
Yeah.
Silver
Tarmac
and orange.
load. Yeah, yeah, silver orange bus, staircase. I remember getting on board the aircraft and there was a fly. Fine. There was a fly on the plane. Well, the fly flew with us across to Toronto. And I just remember seeing the fly on the other side. And that was my first, as a 10-year-old, it was the most fascinating thing. I'm like, my goodness, the fly flew with us.
Blue.
It came across the world. This is amazing. Probably happens every day.
Yeah, well, and I know there was a person I know that was, well, she works at you know her too, but she works at a veterinary office and was in Peru and found a street cat that she liked and somehow managed to bring it back to Toronto from
Mm-hmm.
Peru.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of the internet. There's so many of these like great stories. People go to like Bali and Peru and Thailand, and all they rescue and fall in
Mhm.
love with stray whatever, and what they have to do to bring it home is quite incredible.
Exactly.
I remember working for British Airways, you're in there doing the turn of the aircraft. You get to know your aircraft, like the ins and outs of it and every square inch of it. And the 777s that I would be with, they'd run these aircraft worldwide. I remember a few of them. Sometimes you have to jump in and help the groomers because you're on a delay situation. Whether you're like changing pillow, head covers, whatever. We're getting in the last row and looking across to the back, sort of behind the seater. I'm like, what's that? Oh, that's like the big rat trap. Okay, we'll just leave that there and not tell any passengers that it's there. I mean, these planes run all over the world, whether it be
Yeah, it
from
makes sense.
India
I
to,
mean,
to North America to Africa to Asia. It's
if you're a rat, I mean, a galley's a beautiful place.
oh, it's the best place to be. If you get in on that catering truck, you're on the ride to heaven, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yes, as a passenger
Meanwhile, now as I
experience,
fly intercontinental flights, I'll be taking a peek in the last row.
do it. Last row, like rear bulkhead, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's generally a bit of space. There's usually like a crevice. Yeah. You might find some interesting things going on. um, as a passenger, if you encounter a pet in the cabin, there's not, and if it's going to be annoying, like the way you said, on your New York experience, there's not really much you can do because your fellow passenger has the right to bring their pet on board. And if they're following the rules, you can't blame the pet. It's a stressful experience.
Mhm.
The roaring noise and the pressure and who knows what. So it is kind of something else. Again, scouring the social feeds, you see all these silly things of people buying a business class seat for their dog and strapping them in for a sleep. Like, okay,
Yeah,
sure, whatever. Like, no.
yeah.
Um,
First world problem.
yeah, exactly. But we have had to intervene and ask a passenger, please try and do something to soothe your animal to make it stop making
Mm.
noise. Like, what can we do here? You kind of treat it like a crying baby. In essence, it's an extension of the passenger that's responsible for it. So,
Yeah, and
yeah.
I dealt with a situation late last year where, a customer said, "Well, I measured out my kennel and my dog, the kennel was the right size according to the website, and actually it probably wasn't based on further reading, and the passenger, based on the story I heard, got kicked off the flight because he couldn't get their dog to fit, and by all accounts, argument probably started, and they were asked to leave the flight.
Wow. Yeah. And sometimes, I get annoyed with airlines on this one when they put these measurements for bags that must fit underneath the seat in front. But do they ever take into account, again, depending on the aircraft type, that stupid electronic
A little
the
bump
wiring, the bump, the charging bank, the doohickey that may or may not be there depending on your seat.
on your seat. Yeah.
I it gets me sometimes. Sometimes it's like, what you just said. Maybe the kennel didn't fit because
They were
you
in
have
that
that.
seat that has the little bump for the IFE.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But had it been a different aircraft type, maybe in a different configuration. Who knows?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
If you're liking this episode experience, you may also enjoy Experience 41. What are you shipping? The complex world of air cargo. It's available wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Well, that's our short little bit on pets in the cabin. But I did mention crying baby, so maybe that's a good segue into some trip reviews coming up. So
Yeah, you
in
had some interesting ones at the end of last
yeah,
year and into this year, right?
yeah. Well, in January, when I popped out to Toronto for a quick trip, where we were able to catch up, the return got rather interesting. So it was a
I kept
fairly
getting your
straight.
messages, and I'm just like, what's going on, man?
Yeah, I was giving you live updates, and so standard Toronto, Vancouver, Air Canada. I had meetings all day, so I booked the last flight of the day, which was scheduled to leave at, I believe it was say 22:15 or something like this.
Mm-hmm.
Woke up that morning, or sorry, checked in the night before. Everything looked fine. Looked at the inbound flight, and it was inbound from Vancouver. Actually, so it was just the plane was just turning and running. Actually, let me change the story here, but when I booked that flight, it was meant to be 7879, which I was, you know, very happy to be on.
And it got resized to a
To a
737
max.
Max, right?
Yeah. My seat had maintained because I think I specifically booked a window standard economy. There was no, whether I was on the Dreamliner or on the Max, based on the row number, it was fine. It was good. So then when I found it was a Max, I opted to spend a little bit of money and move to an extra legroom seat. And we're not talking a lot of money. It was like $50 or something. Like,
Yeah.
it's fine. Because I've been on the Max so many times. I was like, it's going to be a 5 hour run. I just want that extra bit of space to relax a bit. So I checked in that morning, checked on the status that morning. And then something interesting happened. It said the inbound flight was from Liberia, Costa Rica. Okay. And it showed that the arrival time was something like 15 minutes before my departure time. So I thought, well, okay, great. It's either going to be delayed because you can't turn the plane in 15 minutes, or they're just going to find another 37 Max from somewhere else to chuck in here.
Swap.
And yeah, fine. Morning goes, afternoon goes, the plane still is showing inbound from Liberia. I'm like, Well, it's about a 4 hour flight from Liberia to Toronto. So I wouldn't know anything until that flight takes off if that was actually going to be my aircraft. Well, sure enough, by 7:30 p.m., I think it was a 90-minute delay was posted, or just shy of 90 minutes, like 80 minutes or something. And of course, it's because the plane, yes, they maintained that plane was the one that we were going to use, was coming in from Costa Rica, and they had to turn it
And pull it from the international terminal to the domestic, or international side to the domestic side.
well, we know that.
Yeah.
But when you're checking your trackers, it doesn't necessarily show that. Now, the Air Canada app is actually quite good. Like it shows some very good details of the inbound gate and everything. So when you start, if you're out geeking, you can really get into it. And Flighty also was showing the same concurrent information. So I was like, okay, well, and I was with you already at this point having dinner. I'm like, whatever, 80 minutes is fine. It's nothing.
Yeah.
I just take a few steps slower and take in the air a bit more and go to the airport a bit slower. And so I did. I think you came to the airport with
Yeah, I
me. That's
joined
right.
with you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Dropped you off, and I'm like, all right, it's not going to be that long.
Yeah. Now this is last flight of the evening out of that section. So this is Hammerhead, Toronto Terminal 1 domestic. Get there, and it's kind of like that period of the terminal where the restaurants are shutting down, the workers are cleaning up, the chairs are going onto the table flipped upside down, all this kind of stuff. Get to the gate and everyone's there. People are just there doing their thing. Fine, 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 fine. Well, about, I don't know, half hour before our departure time, looking out the window, I'm like, yeah, aircraft's not here. And it's at its other gate where it has arrived because this is a domestic gate we're at. It's not a swing gate. Okay. I'm thinking, I have a feeling there's going to be more to this. And sure enough, gate agent comes on and says, oh, blah, blah, blah. The plane has come in from Costa Rica. It now needs to be towed over from the other gate. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So they post another half-hour delay. Okay. Everyone kind of grumbles, but it's the end of the day. They know there's no other option. It is what it is. So fine. Half hour goes by, still no aircraft at the gate. They post another 25 minutes. So now it's starting to kind of roll and get irritating. And I'm also just like getting fed up. I'm like, well, come on, guys. Like, just pick a time. Even if you say it was an hour delay, just pick it and hold to it.
Yeah.
Fine. Aircraft shows up. Okay. And I'm watching the crew. So here's a good tip for our listeners. Watch the crew. Because if you're panicking at the gate thing, oh my goodness, they're about to board, and I don't know if I should go to the washroom and go get some food. If your crew is sitting there, you have a good half hour before anything's going to happen. By the time the doors open, by the time the crew goes down, they get in, they do their checks, you got a long way to go. So crew's sitting there like, well, we're going to be here a while. Fine, fine, fine. Let's move along. They eventually get on. So they call for boarding like just over 2 hours after our original scheduled departure time. They call for boarding, not doors closed. Whatever. You can tell everyone's just tired. They just want to get on the plane, nod off, and have a nice 5 hour quiet ride across the country to Vancouver. We get on. We're in. I'm in my extra legroom seat, which is 12A. Fine. All normal, 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 normal. Then the captain comes on. Oh, sorry. Boarding, nobody else is boarding at this point. It's all quiet. Captain comes on and says, so sorry. We are just holding for a few late connecting passengers. I'm sitting there thinking, how can you be waiting for connecting passengers when we were the last flight and we are delayed by that long? Who is connecting? Because those people are 2.5 hours expired. Like, unless you're saying every other connecting flight is also that late. But okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was just a bit of a quirk. I was like, this is very odd. And so eventually, like 5 people straggle through, and bravo, bravo, they get on the plane. Okay. Now let's focus back to where the story was going. In the seat, so there's a 3-3 configuration. It's me, 2 people next to me. Fine. In the seat behind me, there is a male passenger. In the middle seat behind me, there is a mother and an infant. And in the aisle seat in the row behind, there's a very tall male passenger. They are not traveling together. The baby that this lady is holding is not happy. It is crying, but like a really distressed kind of cry. And being a father, I know what this kind of cry is like. So I'm having sympathy. I'm like, well, I know what it's like. Okay, fine. In the meantime, doors closing, we're pushing back, safety video. This woman, and I hesitate to say mother as to how this is going to unfold, does not really make much of an effort to soothe the child. She's kind of saying the same thing on auto repeat. And it's something, I think it was like, it's okay, baby, stop crying. Over and over and over in a very annoying pitch. Now, as a parent, I'd be pulling out every trick I have to calm my child down and keep the cabin quiet. I don't know, feed it, pull out the iPad, bring out a toy, talk to it, show it something. Mother, pull out a boob if you need to breastfeed. I don't care. Just quiet it down. Well, nothing's happening. So now the delay just continues to roll because now we have to go for a de-ice. I'm like, right? Okay, well, it is what it is. I'm glad I paid for my extra legroom seat and there's good IFE. I'm going to try and watch a movie. Got my noise canceling on and it's hoping that it's just going to work. As we pull into, and now again, the baby's still going. We pull into the icing bay. The gentleman behind me loses it. He starts going off and just starts cussing. He's like, blah, 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 your baby needs to stop crying. This is ridiculous. And starts swearing and this. And I'm like, oh man, I'm never getting home. Because now we have an unruly passenger. Now we have to deal with him. We're going to have to go back. We're going to have to kick him off the plane. Blah, blah, blah. The crew's going to time out. I'm like, ah, great. Just fantastic. So now we have a scene going on behind. Like, oh, you got to be kidding me. So passengers start kind of getting all irate, whatever. Crew shows up. They start cluing in, like, what is happening here? They calm him down. Baby's now even more irate, absolutely screaming. And I got the music on, like, fully crying. I'm just trying to ignore because they're going to do what they got to do to deal with the situation. Long and short of it, baby was hungry. So the crew is like looking at this woman. Where's your bag? It's in the bin. Let's get the bag. Okay, let's open it. And there's a full bottle of, I don't know, milk or whatever. They go, they do the heating thing. They bring it back. Baby gets it. Boom. Quiet. Hunky dory, passes out. Thank goodness. Okay, fine. Dealt with. We're now leaving de-ice. Okay. Buddy behind me. I think he just needed to get it out of his system just to like, have a spaz. Okay. We take off. No, it's not over yet. This woman, now it's her turn to have a go at the guy. So she starts berating him for him being, I don't know, verbally abusive, whatever. And we're all just sitting there like, are you kidding me? We're already in the air and now you're being an idiot and trying to have a go at this guy. Like, just simmer it all off. It's all done. Baby's asleep. Everyone's happy. Nope. So she's going at him. And eventually, once the seatbelt sign went off, the tall man in the aisle seat says, forget this. I will take the middle seat. You sit in the aisle with your child, and this is over. And that's what happened. And that was
Oh,
the
wow.
So yeah, that's how I flew home. Instead of getting home at like 1 a.m., I think I got home
You got
at
home
like,
like 3:30 or something, right?
yeah, I was in bed at 4:15. But on the flip side, it did qualify me for delay compensation, which was fantastic. And it
And they were fairly quick with it.
took about a month for it to all
Okay.
kind of roll through by the time. But it was brilliant. So I'll give her a count out of that for the processing on that. So yeah,
Nice.
that was good. Yeah,
Wild. I didn't know the rest of the story. I just knew that you were wickedly delayed.
yeah, and that's why. So it was the delay, and then compounded with this sort of onboard incident. So yeah, it was good times. So that was that interesting trip. Another trip that we did very recently is me and family. We went to Costa Rica. Funny, Costa Rica, even though that inbound plane that I was just going on about was coming out of Liberia, Costa Rica. So in
You went
this
back to
one,
Liberia.
yeah, family vacation, pretty standard. Myself, wife, and our almost 3-year-old son who's getting into aviation. It's fantastic. So on this one, we were doing Vancouver to Atlanta, red eye service on WestJet. I had no idea that WestJet ran that particular route, but they do. With a 3-hour layover and then connection on Delta to Liberia. And I was really looking forward to this one because it was our chance to fly on a 757
Oh,
that
nice.
Delta still runs. It's probably, who knows when I'll fly on that again, but it's like, oh, it's classic aircraft. So red eye service, WestJet, pretty normal to Atlanta. You get in there, and Atlanta is a large airport. Hartsfield International is one of the biggest in
Massive.
the world. Yeah, and it's a very straightforward design. It's like, a series of Lego blocks, and there's like this train that connects underneath to go from one terminal to another. So yeah, arrive, come out, connection train, food service options are very good, surprisingly. And shockingly, the prices were within reasonable consideration. We were expecting like a ridiculous amount of money. And given that American portion sizes are big and you order one for two,
Yeah.
you order a big, massive breakfast bagel and the thing you can't even get your mouth around. Well, fine. That price, it's all good. So had a great layover. And one thing that's wonderful about Atlanta is there's a lot of glass. So there's tons of glass to look at. airport and tarmac and planes and like floor to ceiling.
Yeah.
So we found our gate and we parked ourselves there and our son's there up against the glass watching it all happen. It was really nice. And it was a really nice moment. The sun was rising, it was great lighting, and our plane comes to taxi in, and the window we put was right on nose point
Oh,
with the
beautiful.
flight. Oh, it was just wonderful. I don't know who was more enamored, me or my boy. And
Like father, like son.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So we're standing there and he's waving at the captain. And as soon as the chalks were in, they start waving back. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. Yeah, got
Cool.
a video of it all. It was really nice. One thing I'll give the American carriers, they're still very much all about heritage and tradition and camaraderie because we're there playing. He's got his airport toys, got his little flip cards for the aircraft and doing a thing. The inbound captain, obviously a domestic flight, came into the terminal, and after he kind of went through his whatever procedural things he had to do, he came over to us because he had seen us and wanted to say hi and had
Oh,
like a little
wow.
set of wings for us. And like, I guess Delta has like these kind of trading cards for their aircraft and offered them to him and wanted to talk to him and was so taken aback and wanted to take a picture of all his stuff. It was really, really touching.
Oh,
It was
nice.
really, really, and he's there with like the hat. God, I love the hat. Some
Yeah.
airline, they still wear the hat. He's there with the hat and the stripes. I'm like, this is the best. This is the best.
Yeah.
So
Forget about the trading cards for the kid. Dad wants a
yeah, yeah, I don't want to set, sir. Right. Eventually, we go to board, and Delta has this wicked new system, facial recognition boarding. So they made the announcement saying, we don't want to see your boarding card. We don't want to see your passports. Just walk up, follow the sign, step on the things as needed. Okay, what does this mean? So I go up, stand on the X. Okay, you may proceed. And there's a picture of me, and it's verified that I am on board. Hold my sign up. Yep, takes the picture, and boom, we're on. I don't know where they're comparing the picture to. And the reason I say that is my son is almost 3. Well, his passport photo was from 15 months old. He does
Yeah,
not
well,
look
certain
like his
biometrics
passport.
though, right, would stay the same.
Yeah, I'm hoping. Or the biometrics that have been coded in through the passport process. So
Yeah.
it was brilliant. It was just like one of the fastest boarding processes ever. So that was really nice. And then, yeah, it was just a quick 3-hour run down to Liberia. Uh, Pretty standard airport, nothing too major. And yeah, we arrived. And you come out of immigration and you go into a non-air conditioned baggage arrivals hall, and
Oh
it
boy.
just hits you. Whew, 38 degrees plus humidity. So like a
Nice.
like a wall. Yeah. Do our vacation, come back to this airport. And this is where I start to get annoyed. So first of all, there's no carts in the departure section. Now our host had told us that. So I ran over to arrive. It's just like a linear airport. It's all on the same level. There's no like terminals. So I ran over to grab a cart, bring it. Okay. Oh, and they don't allow the carts to leave the terminal. Like you can't take it to the curb.
Hmm.
Another thing. So I
You
had
have
to
to go in
shuttle
the
them.
door, get the cart, and
Well, leave the car. I had to shuttle the bags into the
yeah.
door where the car was. It was really silly. Fine. I get then, or get us to the Delta queue. They wouldn't allow us to take the cart into the queue, which
Okay.
was very, very strange. It's like, what do you mean? It's 10 feet. I
Yeah.
have a child. We have a like car seat. I have this stack of luggage.
Yeah.
No, sorry, not allowed, not allowed, not allowed. Like, ugh. So, obviously we didn't have that much luggage. We were immobile, but I had to like, de-rig and then like go as like a bunch of elephants into the queue. And unfortunately, they were like, you could tell that airline staff didn't agree with the rule. And the
Yeah.
guy apologized. Like, so sorry, but it's the airport contractors that don't allow this. I'm like, okay, this is terrible, but whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, check in, bag drop fine. Security, one great thing about traveling with a small child is you get to get some line access. So all good. And then you go into the terminal and it's just like the cesspool of vacationers all going home
Hmm.
from their
Yeah.
all inclusives. And I'm just like, this is just the worst place to. And it's just loud, overblown speaker announcements with only 8 gates, and everyone's talking over each other. There's duty free everywhere. It's like this
Yeah.
madhouse, this nut house of like sound and noise and input, and you're like, what is going on here? But anyway, eventually get on 737-900, which I haven't been on in a long time. 6 hour run to LAX, and this is where the wheels start falling off the bus. So we had booked, we had an overnight layover, and I planned it this way because it was like a 16-hour layover versus like these sort of 9 hour things where you barely have any time to sleep. I was like, with a small child, we need to have a proper thing. So I booked it, and I went, well, I'm going to book a hotel with a runway view because that exists in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And there are a number of options to choose from. It was great. There was even one that had a rooftop viewing deck, which I initially had booked, but the weather was raining like mad for those 2 days. So I'm like, well, that's not going to happen. So I'm like, let's just book the Hilton LAX, which sits at the end of the runway threshold where they go for the takeoff round if you catch the right direction, and which we did.
Okay.
So anyway, come into LAX, Tom Bradley International, and we landed with, I think, 4 Asian wide-body aircraft,
Oh
as well as
boy.
a Virgin Atlantic, and a smattering of all the rest of us. That arrivals hall was, immigration processing was probably one of the most inhumane experiences we've had in a long time. There were probably 2 to 3,000 people in that hall. There was no extra queuing denominations. It was US citizens, all others. Now, unfortunately, our son doesn't have his Nexus, which is a fast track entry into Canada, the US, yet. So hence we could not use that. However, the US offers this new system called MPC, Mobile Passport Control. So you can pre-register everything on an app. You can make your declaration, you put your face, scan your pass, you get everything loaded up. And there's supposed to be a queue for mobile passport control. So, I knew going into LA, it was going to be busy like this because I've been through this as an
Yeah.
individual before, but I had Nexus. I'm like, well, okay. So we get in there. I'm asking for a mobile passport control, and the customer service is negative, whatever, like
Yeah.
just disgusting. They're like, no, it's closed, doesn't exist here. I'm like, what? Other people are in the same frustration. So we joined this line with the few thousand people. We were in the line for probably 100 minutes.
Gee, sounds like
And
the time I landed in Detroit.
yeah, hour and 45 minutes with a small child. It's late at night. And we thought, well, we can argue with a child. No, there were 20, 30 other kids,
Families. Yeah.
babies, infants, younger than us, miserable. Everyone is pissed. Everyone's miserable. Everyone's irate. People are missing their flight connections. The airport staff is doing nothing to alleviate anything, whether they could
Mhm.
or not. I don't know. But there's no provision. There's no way you can go to the washroom. Good luck with that. Our boy had to pee, and we're in the midst of potty training. Well, we can't leave the line because the line is actually moving. I'll give it that. Like
Mhm.
you're not standing, but you're moving. But there's nowhere to go. So while we're lining up, we had to like drop his shorts, chuck on a diaper, and let him just pee through his
Yeah.
underwear into that. But okay, stop, take the shoes off. Okay, go. Okay, take the pants off. Okay, move again. Absolutely ridiculous scenario going. And I'm
Wow.
looking at the US CBP, the number of desks. They have like 30 desks, of which like 8 are open.
Oh man.
Classic. Great. Thanks, US. Like, just because. Anyway, everyone's tired, frustrated, angry. We get through, get the bags, and now we have to find the airport shuttle. And we've talked
Yeah.
about the curbside experience. And we're gonna, yeah. I'm following the sign for airport hotel shuttle. It says, okay, go upstairs. And then that's it. The signs finish.
Oh no.
I'm on the curb looking, and the shuttles are flying by. I'm like, well, where is this thing? Going in circles. It's cold. It's rainy. Go inside, find an info desk. Oh, there's no hotel shuttle that picks up here. Like, this is the
The
international
heck?
terminal. What are you
Yeah.
talking about? So you have to follow it to Terminal 3 around the corner. Like, you have got to be flipping kidding me at this point.
Yeah.
Fine. Okay, follow the curb. Do you think the curb is obstacle free? No.
No.
You're like dodging around like these concrete things on wall, and there's the mass of us, and it's just I don't know what the US thinks. These stupid little buses, and everyone's like, and it's nighttime, so it's not like you can see the logo or the colors of the
Mhm.
van is approaching. So you're straining your eyes, and everyone's like jumping and trying to like find it. And they're there with their carts and their bags. Eventually, we get the hotel shuttle and get in, and then he has to stop at every single terminal along the way
Mhm. Yeah.
and get to the Hilton LAX. So we get to Hilton LAX, which again, I emphasize the word Hilton on this. We're going into a bit of a trip review here. So get in there, and being one of the last off the shuttle, you get to the hotel check-in desk, and it's lined up again. Thank goodness I have some status on this one, Hilton Honor, so I was able to use that line.
Yeah.
Get the key. I was actually looking forward to using this new system called Digital Key, which was actually quite neat. So Hilton offers this digital key thing. So you check in on the app, and it's
Hmm.
supposed to give you programming to then just go straight to the room. Like you pick your room
Oh, wow.
in
Okay.
the hotel. Like the way you pick your seat on a plane, you actually pick your room. I was like, this
Oh,
is really
wow.
cool. Yeah. But because it's the first time I was using it, I had to go to the desk to verify my identity
Ah,
and payment. I'm like, yeah. Anyway, we get to the room, and I was just like already annoyed now, annoyed and tired and frustrated from what has just happened in the
yeah.
last 3 hours. The Hilton LAX rooms, I think a Holiday Inn would have been nicer than this.
Oh, well.
Old, tired, worn down, but whatever. It's not like I'm going to switch rooms. We get in, we're trying to like settle, and we're starving, absolutely starving at this point. So, fine. I look on the map, and there's a Carl's Jr., which is like an American burger chain,
Hmm.
like literally at the next block. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go. Um, go down, go out in the practically a hurricane in my cloth hoodie, run down the street. And it said the Carl's Jr. is 24/7. Yeah, no, the drive through is 24/7, but not the main walk up. And even if I want to try and stand in the drive through, there were like 20, 30 cars there.
Oh, man.
Like, forget this. Like, pissed off and go back, go to the 24-hour hotel restaurant bistro thing, pay like 20 US dollars for some silly Italian sub,
Yeah.
take it up, get milk, fruit for our child, get in, you know, go through the, well, at this point, it's almost 1 in the morning. I'm like, oh, what kind of layover is this? Like, now it gets worse. My wife decides to take a shower. She undoes the faucet, and it's like a kind of a screw type thing. Next thing you know, it locks in. We can't turn it off. So now we have the hot water running nonstop. We can't force it to stop. Like it's jammed.
Yeah.
Like, oh my goodness, are we gonna have to shift rooms? This is just getting worse and worse by the minute. Call, hi, we might be flooding here. You got to send maintenance right away. And she's like, yeah, right away. Okay. Well, 15 minutes later, right away, a guy comes, does whatever he does, and unjams it and turns it off. Okay, done. Forget the shower. We got to just shut down. That
Yeah.
was how our night unfolded. Like, just it would not stop. It was just unreal. And the next morning started off a lot better because our windows, the aircraft were all there coming to taxi, wait
Oh,
their turn
nice.
for takeoff. There were things coming and going. He saw every aircraft in the book. It was raining,
Hmm.
but you could still see. It was great. And the shuttle back to Terminal 3 in this case was fine. Terminal 3 security is wonderful now. They've redone the
Hmm.
whole thing. But what's interesting, there's a bunch of new systems, something called Clear, which I wasn't aware
Yep.
of. And yeah, they
Like
have
Vancouver
that.
has.
And then they have your pre-check, and then they have regular. So there's a bit of sorting, but anyway, we got through and just took a WestJet flight on another Max aircraft back to YVR and smooth sailing from that point. So yeah, my loathing and hatred for LAX just went up a
Continues.
notch. I think so. I think when one of our fellow podcasters has a loathing for Frankfurt, I kind of notch it in the same level there. And I'm very curious to see where this goes when they host the
The Olympics?
Olympic Games in 2028. LA, you have 4 years to get your act together with this one. So let's see.
Well, yes. So That was awesome and crazy. And you and LAX is me with EWR and others with Frankfurt and other airports. So, yeah, it was great. Fantastic to do another experience with you here. So that wraps up experience 79 of the Seat 1A podcast. If you liked this podcast experience, be sure to rate us and subscribe. Tell your friends and fellow travelers about us. Make sure you visit us at podcast.seat1a.org for complete show notes. That's Sierra Echo Alpha Tango, the number 1, alpha.org. Feedback, addenda, letting us know where we've messed up. You can send all of that to stories, STORIES, at seat1a.org. If you'd like to support the show financially, we have a page at Patreon, patreon.com/seat1a. Links are included in the show notes.
And in our upcoming podcast experience, we are going to have a special interview with a very frequent flyer and friend of ours. So we look forward to bringing that to our next experience 080.
Excellent. So until the next time, I'm Geoff. Thanks for listening.
And I'm Vinod. You're cleared for takeoff. Have a great flight.